If I had known that one cup of tea could unravel 30 years of trust, I would have skipped breakfast that morning. I was sitting at the small wooden table in my mother Ellen's cramped apartment, holding a steaming mug, the kind with a faded rose pattern she loved. She'd brewed the tea too weak, the way her boyfriend preferred it. I thought it'd be a calm morning. I thought I was safe. "Mom," my daughter Sophie said, her voice light, like she was asking for a ride to the mall, "can I use your credit card again? It's for this art course I really need. It's only $4,000. I didn't hesitate. I said no. That's when Ellen snapped. She didn't shout at first. She let the silence fester, heavy and sharp. Then, without a word, she flicked her wrist, and my tea splashed across my chest, hot enough to sting through my sweater. I gasped, jumped back, the mug clattering to the linoleum, cracking in two. The tea soaked my clothes, my skin burned, my pride crumbled. Ellen didn't flinch. "If you're going to be stingy, maybe it's time you find your own place," she said, crossing her arms like she was issuing a lease termination. "Either give Sophie what she wants or get out. We're not your personal bank, Clara." Bank. That word cut deeper than the heat. I stood there, dripping, stunned, my eyes meeting hers. For a second, I thought I saw regret, but no, it was calculation. I was being evaluated, tallied, and deemed expendable. $4,000, I said, my voice steady but shaking, for a teenager's art class. Ellen's mouth twisted. "It's not a big deal. You've got money. You've been hoarding it since Dad passed. I don't know why you're making this difficult." "I've been covering your phone bill," I said quietly. "And I never once asked you to pay for my car insurance." Her eyes rolled. "You're lucky I let you stay here after your divorce. Remember? You could barely afford your own groceries." I wanted to yell, not just from the burn, but from the betrayal. Her help wasn't help, it was leverage. Ellen's kindness came with chains, subtle at first, then heavy, cutting into me. In that moment, I saw it clearly. This wasn't my mother anymore. This was someone who saw me as a tool, a resource, a stubborn woman who'd overstayed her welcome. Behind her, Sophie looked indifferent, still waiting, still expecting the card. My hands trembled as I grabbed a dish towel to blot my sweater. No one moved to help. My breath was short, my pulse loud in my ears. Ellen leaned back, smirking. "You either hand over the card, or you're out by tonight." It wasn't a suggestion, it was an ultimatum. I looked at the spilled tea, pooling around the broken mug. One shard lay near my shoe, its rose pattern split in half. Something once lovely, now ruined. Like me. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I walked to the sink, ran cold water over my stinging hands, and turned off the faucet. Then I spoke. "I'll be gone by dusk." Ellen blinked, probably expecting a fight. But what she didn't know, what I'd just remembered, was that quiet doesn't mean powerless. Some debts are settled not with money, but with resolve. The door clicked shut behind me as I entered the spare room. My legs still burned, but the real pain wasn't the tea. It was knowing she meant it. She wanted me gone, not because she couldn't afford me, but because I was no longer useful. I sat on the edge of the bed, my bed, the one I'd slept in after my divorce, when Ellen had tucked me in like I was still her daughter, not her tenant. She'd called it temporary, insisted I stay. I was grateful, foolishly grateful. Now I saw it for what it was, a snare. She handled my phone bills, my groceries, my car repairs for convenience, she said. She'd manage my accounts so I could focus on rebuilding. She told my friends I was too busy to meet up, when really, she never passed on their messages. And I let her. I let her help me right out of my own freedom. I moved slowly to the closet. My duffel bag was on the top shelf, slightly worn but sturdy. I pulled it down, gripping the dresser for balance. My knees ached, but I didn't wince. Pain was familiar. What hurt more was the silence. No knock, no footsteps, no one checking on me. Ellen had yelled loud enough for the neighbors to hear, and Sophie had watched me stumble, but they didn't care enough to follow. I opened the nightstand drawer and pulled out a manila envelope I'd hidden months ago under some old receipts. Inside were copies of my driver's license, my insurance card, a handwritten note with my bank's routing number. I hadn't known why I'd kept them, but now it was clear. Some part of me had always sensed this day coming. As I packed, I made no sound, no tears, no muttering. I folded each shirt with care, tucked in my earrings, just cheap ones and a silver band from my ex-husband.
Mine.
From the living room, I heard the faint buzz of Ellen's favorite cooking show. Sophie was probably in her room, scrolling, spending someone else's money. I zipped the duffel and sat down, my eyes scanning the room. A photo of Ellen and me at my high school graduation sat on the dresser. I'd looked so proud then. I wasn't proud now. I was awake. The doorknob twitched briefly, then stopped. They heard me packing but didn't care enough to check. Or maybe they hoped I'd vanish quietly. They didn't know me at all. I sat back, duffel at my feet, heart racing like I was waiting for test results. But I already knew the diagnosis. I wasn't broken. I was discarded. And that meant I was free. I picked up my phone and scrolled to a name I hadn't called in months. Margaret, a retired paralegal, my old neighbor from before the divorce. Still kind. I hit call. She answered on the third ring. "Clara," she said, her voice warm but cautious. "Is everything okay?" "No," I said, steady. "But it's about to be." It was quiet after I hung up. A hollow, aching quiet, the kind that lingers in homes where love used to be. I rested one hand on my duffel, the other brushing the nightstand where my keys usually sat. Then I noticed something. My purse felt light. I unzipped the main pocket. No wallet, no debit card, no ID. My heart lurched. I checked every compartment, nothing. I'd had it yesterday, I was sure. I'd used it at the pharmacy for my allergy meds. Ellen had driven me, offered to carry my purse while I walked, slower than her. I thought she was being thoughtful. No, she was setting me up. I could hear her voice now months back, so casual. "Let me handle your bills, Clara. It's easier if it's all in one account. You just focus on getting back on your feet." So I let her. I gave her passwords, access, trust. Now I couldn't recall the last time I'd seen a bank statement with my name on it. She'd switched everything to paperless, to simplify. What an idiot I'd been. The truth rose like acid. They didn't love me. They loved my money. I wasn't family, I was a budget line. I opened the dresser's bottom drawer, where I kept a small spiral notebook for grocery lists from my old apartment. On the back page, I jotted down my account numbers months ago, just in case. I stared at them. Mine, but when had I last seen the card? I checked my jewelry box, my coat pockets, even my old planner. Nothing. They didn't just ask for my money. They stole it. I sat back, dizzy. The sting of the tea was gone, replaced by something colder, sharper, a shame that tasted like ash. The worst part? I'd let it happen. I'd let Ellen become my keeper, told myself she was helping, stepping up. But she was stepping over me, around me, in front of me. I hadn't seen it until now, not when she told my book club I was too tired to join, not when she screened my bank calls, not when she started approving my online orders like I was a kid. She'd locked me in, softly, one latch at a time, until I had nowhere to go. That was the part that almost broke me. I wasn't weak. I'd survived a bad marriage, a layoff, a car accident. But I hadn't survived this gracefully. I looked at the graduation photo again. Ellen's smile was smug even then, before I knew some mothers don't love you back. They just use your shadow. My phone buzzed. "Margaret, texting. I'm outside. Ready when you are." I stared at the screen, then at the invisible shards of trust scattered across the room. I wasn't just leaving an apartment today. I was leaving a lie. By the time I opened the door, Margaret was already at the steps, a quiet urgency in her walk. She wore her usual cardigan and carried a sturdy tote, like we were just grabbing coffee. She didn't ask questions or look at me like I was fragile. She just said, "Ready?" I nodded. The apartment behind me was silent. No doors opening, no calls to stop me. That silence was proof they thought I wouldn't leave, that I couldn't. Margaret took my duffel and my smaller bag. "Got everything?" she asked as we reached her car. "Everything I still own," I said. She opened the passenger door, Careful with your knees. That small kindness nearly undid me, not because she was gentle, but because it had been so long since someone cared without expecting a return. The drive was quiet at first. I watched the small-town streets of Maplewood blur by, each turn pulling me further from the apartment that stopped being home the day Ellen started measuring my worth like a utility bill. Halfway through town, Margaret spoke. "I saw you last week, you know." I blinked. "What?" "On the balcony, holding that little glass bird figurine. You looked like you were crying." "I didn't want to bother you." I didn't remember crying or the bird. I guess I trailed off. It felt like I was living someone else's life. A smaller one. "I figured something was wrong when you stopped coming to the community center," she said. That hit me hard. Ellen hadn't just taken my money. She'd taken my routines, my friends, my freedom to walk 3 blocks to the library and sip burnt coffee with the knitting group. She didn't lock me in a room. She just made the world harder to reach. "You're not the first I've helped like this," Margaret said softly. "People getting managed out of their own lives. It's more common than you'd think." I said nothing, holding back tears like they were secrets I couldn't afford to spill. "I made some calls this morning," she continued. "There's a place you might like. A senior community with independent apartments. You mentioned once you liked the one with the garden fountain." I turned to her. "That place is too expensive." "I saw the flyers." "Ellen said it wasn't practical." "Ellen also said you needed help ordering your own groceries," Margaret said dryly. "Don't give her power she didn't earn." That made me smile just a little. She handed me a small folder from the glove box. "Start here. Pamphlets. And we'll talk to a financial protection officer, too. If your card's missing, we need to move fast." My chest thudded. Not fear, not even anger, just truth settling in. "I didn't want it to come to this," I whispered. "She's my mother." Margaret nodded, slowing at a stoplight. "And I'm sure you loved her well. But sometimes love is just the wrapping on a trap." I looked out the window. Somewhere behind me, Ellen might have noticed I was gone. Maybe not. But ahead, for the first time in months, I saw a door opening, not a cage, a choice. We pulled up to Willow Creek, the senior community. The sign was simple, just clean letters on a stone plaque, but the grounds beyond it looked like a life I'd thought was for other people. Lavender bushes, a stone fountain, a pergola with climbing roses. Margaret parked, and we sat in the quiet. "I'm not ready," I said softly.
"For what?" she asked.
"To want this." She didn't reply, just nodded. Margaret knew some moments needed room to breathe. We stepped into the lobby, and it hit me. The place smelled like fresh linen and warm bread, not regret or antiseptic. The receptionist, Nora, greeted us with a smile, not too eager. "You must be Clara," she said. Margaret called ahead. "Welcome." I almost said I was just visiting, but something stopped me. A whisper. "Let it be." We toured the garden first. Margaret matched my pace, slow and steady. We passed a reading nook, a pottery studio, a Tai Chi class for seniors. I watched 2 women laugh as they folded their yoga mats, and it struck me. They weren't being controlled. They were living, choosing. Every window let in light. No one hovered. No one needed permission to step outside. At the fountain, I stopped. The water rippled gently. No rush. No urgency. "I used to sit by water like this when I needed to think," I said. "Before all this." "You still do," Margaret said. We sat for a while. I didn't speak. I just existed. For the first time in months, I wasn't someone's burden. I wasn't Ellen's problem or Sophie's ATM. I was Clara. Back inside, Nora led us to a small lounge with a tray, 2 cups, a plate of shortbread, a brochure. No pressure, just an offering. I held the cup, grateful for its warmth, and read the brochure. A 1-bedroom with a patio, month to month, move-in ready. Ellen had dismissed it. Places like that are for wealthy widows, not people like you. I read the cost again. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't impossible. Not if I had my accounts back, my life back. "I don't know if I can afford this," I said, more to myself. "Then let's find out," Margaret said. "But first, you file the paperwork. A financial protection order. I'll help." That word, protection, landed heavy. Not because I was weak, but because I was done pretending I didn't need shielding from my own mother. Okay, I said, looking at the brochure one last time. Let's start. At Margaret's dining table, I spread out every document I had left. My license, old credit card statements, a folder labeled taxes that Ellen had mocked for being so old school, and a notebook, pages creased, where I'd tracked every odd moment I could recall. It's messy, I said, but I tried to keep it all. Margaret adjusted her glasses. Messy's fine. Truth usually is. She flipped through the pages, nodding. Recurring charges from stores you don't visit. A Spotify account called Sophie Rocks. Venmo transfers at 2 a.m. This is solid. I sat straighter, hands clasped, focused. I didn't feel small anymore. I had something they didn't expect. Proof. The card was gone, but my memory wasn't. With clear eyes, I saw it now. Ellen's control wasn't care. It was a plan. Do you have a scanner? Margaret asked. I nodded. In my old office, still hooked up to the laptop.
Tomorrow we scan these, she said.
I'll connect you with a financial abuse specialist. They're discreet. They don't just reverse charges, they build cases.
She paused.
But we need to move fast. Once Ellen knows you're not coming back, she might try to cover her tracks. She has access to some accounts, I said. But the car title, I hesitated. Yes. Margaret looked up. It's in my name. Ellen had it transferred before my divorce, said it'd help with legal stuff. Margaret exhaled, almost a chuckle. Well, that changes everything. She stood, pulling a lockbox from a shelf. Inside were forms, neatly tabbed. Copy every document. Get them notarized. List exact dates of withdrawals if you can. I nodded, already scribbling in my notebook. My hand shook, but my mind was sharp. Should I call her? Tell her I'm filing? No, Margaret said firmly. Let the paperwork speak. It's louder than you ever could be. That stayed with me. Let the paperwork speak. Let it carry the words I'd swallowed, the theft disguised as hugs, the control masked as care. Let it say what I couldn't. You tried to own me, but I kept the evidence. That night, I scanned every page, sorted files until midnight. My back ached, my eyes burned, but I didn't stop. I had a purpose bigger than survival, a case. Whether they apologized or not, the truth would stand, for the lawyers, the courts, for me. Ellen didn't know I still had the car title. She never asked, assumed her temporary control was permanent. So when she pulled into her parking lot 2 days later and saw a stranger with a clipboard inspecting her car, I imagine it felt like a system error. The stranger was a repossession agent, Diane, referred by Margaret's contacts. Professional, quiet, no gossip. I wasn't there. I was where I needed to be, 2 counties over, on the patio of my temporary Willow Creek apartment, iced coffee in one hand, a signed title transfer form in the other. Margaret had brought it that morning. I didn't need to see the storm. I just needed the paperwork to land first. Ellen called, of course. 4 times, straight to voicemail. The 5th, I answered. Clara, what the hell? There's a repo agent here looking at my car, she shouted. You ordered this? I paused, then said, correct. Silence, then fury. You're not serious. Very serious. You don't even live here anymore. Is this some petty revenge? No, I said. I'm taking back what's mine. This is my car, she snapped. No, I said, calm but firm. It's the car you've been driving, paid for with money that wasn't yours. I let you play manager. That's over. You can't just take it. I didn't take it, Ellen. You told me to leave. The silence was heavy, like fog. She didn't know I remembered everything, how the title was transferred to me during my divorce, how I'd signed papers without reading, trusting her. But one thing I hadn't signed? Power of attorney. The car was mine legally, morally. Now it was being repossessed, protected from her. Ellen spoke again, voice cold. You're being cruel. I didn't argue. I said one line that stopped her. You only miss me now that I said no. I hung up. Diane texted. Inspection done. Client Ellen tried to intervene, but I stayed professional. Car ready for repossession. Follow up tomorrow. Margaret called later.
She tried me too, she said.
Left a voicemail, all threats. Let her threaten, I said. For the first time, I wasn't scared of her anger. I wasn't even angry. I was certain that love without respect is just control, that family means nothing when it's built on manipulation. Even if I had nothing but this patio, this coffee, my name on a form, I was freer than I'd ever been in that apartment. The front doors at Willow Creek are glass, sturdy but welcoming. You can see out, but no one enters without permission. That's why I didn't react when I saw Ellen coming. I was in the community lounge, reading a pamphlet on elder financial abuse Margaret had marked for me. My coffee sat untouched, too bitter, but the words burned hotter. The front desk buzzed my room. There's an Ellen here to see you, the receptionist said. Should we let her in? No, I said. But tell her I'm watching. They didn't question it. The staff knew. They'd seen this before. Children showing up when their name's on the line, not the caller ID. I moved to the sunroom, just off the lobby, where I could see without being seen. Ellen stood in the foyer, in tight jeans and a sharp green top, pacing like a caged animal. Her face was pure disbelief, like the air itself had betrayed her. The receptionist approached. Ellen pointed toward the garden, toward me. I saw it, sharp and accusing. She didn't know I was behind the glass. She didn't know she was the one on the outside now. I stepped back, not from fear, but choice. It's a power people like Ellen never expect. Not the power to fight, but to walk away. 10 minutes later, security arrived, calm but firm. A man in a gray blazer spoke to Ellen, who gestured wildly, her mouth moving faster than her sense. She pointed at the brochure rack, the ceiling, maybe the sky itself. Anything but herself. Finally, she stormed out. The doors closed behind her like a period. I returned to my seat, my coffee cold but irrelevant. I wasn't shaken. I was still. Later, Margaret stopped by with a thermos of tea and a small vase of daisies from her yard. I told her what happened. She came all this way just to be turned away, she said, shaking her head. She expected the old me, I said. The one who thought quiet meant weak. Margaret nodded. That Clara's gone. We walked to the garden, carrying 2 lemonades the staff had left. I settled on my favorite bench, ivy curling around its legs, the fountain glinting nearby. Ellen had come for control, a confession, a reversal. She got nothing because I had nothing left to give, not guilt, not permission, not my attention. The peace I felt wasn't from winning. It was from the sound of footsteps leaving without a door opening behind them. I squeezed Margaret's hand. I don't think I'm afraid of her anymore, I whispered. She smiled. That means she's really gone. 2 days later, Margaret called after breakfast. Time to sell the car? She asked. I didn't pause. Yes. She met me at Willow Creek with a folder. The car title, my notarized ID, a trust form ready to lock everything Ellen thought was hers. We sat on the sun porch, papers spread out.
She'll lose it, I said.
Margaret smirked. Let her. Losing it means she's exposed. I signed every line, print, initial, signature. My ex-husband would have laughed at how my jaw tightened when I focused, but this wasn't just a sale. It was a cutting of ties. The car Ellen drove, bragged about, customized with my money, it was never hers. She picked the rims, sure, paid for detailing, yes, but the title? My name. Always had been. We filed the trust quietly, transferring the car into the Clara Bennett Irrevocable Living Trust. Not because I feared a fight, but because I wanted something unbreakable. By the next day, the title had shifted. Ellen didn't know yet, but the law did. I'd also worked with a financial abuse specialist Margaret found. I requested a freeze on all transactions from my old accounts. Anything processed in the last 6 months would be flagged. The specialist asked for evidence. I have 10 pages, I said, handing over my notebook, dates, details, withdrawals. She scanned it, her eyes widening. You weren't just used, she said. You were targeted. I didn't flinch. I knew. And now the law did too. Back at Willow Creek, I felt lighter. Not joy, not yet, but space, like I could breathe without apologizing for it. In my room, I pulled out a letter my ex-husband left me before he passed, tucked in a keepsake box. I'd never opened it. It was marked, for when you're tired of pretending you're fine. Inside, a short note. Clara, if they ever make you feel less than the woman I loved, don't argue. Don't explain. Just walk away. You owe no one your light. Use what's yours and make sure they can't take it again. Below it, an uncashed check for $8,000. I stared, then laughed. A raw, aching laugh that hurt my chest. He knew. Even then, he knew family could turn. I called Margaret. You free? For you? Always. Let's sell a car, I said. And set up a trust they can't touch. She paused. Ready for the fallout? I looked around my room, the sun streaming in, the fountain sparkling, my knitting bag on the chair. Yes, I said. Because I'm not reacting. I'm reclaiming. I deposited the check that afternoon, not because I needed it, but because I wanted the world to know I wasn't finished building. Ellen thought she'd get the last word. She counted on it, her calls louder, her texts longer, her guilt trips wrapped in fake concern. She thought silence was defeat. So when the letter arrived, thick, formal, sealed, I bet she stood in her doorway, frozen, before opening it. Inside was the end, a notice from the trust's legal counsel. Effective immediately, Ellen Harper is no longer authorized to access any accounts, property, or financial records belonging to Clara Bennett. Short, professional, no blame, just boundaries. That's what broke her. She called 9 times that day. I didn't answer. The 10th, she left a voicemail. Clara, this is absurd. You're listening to her instead of your own mother. Do you even know what you're doing? You're destroying your family. Family. She wielded it like a shield, like it erased the theft, the gaslighting, the tea. But family isn't a free pass. It's a privilege she lost the moment she burned me and blamed me for it. I forwarded the voicemail to Margaret, just in case. Then I did something simple but strong. I sent nothing. No reply, no defense. I let the letter speak, drawing a line she couldn't cry her way across. Margaret called that evening. She got it, didn't she? Oh, she got it, I said, sipping peppermint tea from my favorite chipped mug. You can tell when they realize the control's gone. She laughed. You didn't even blink. Why would I? I said. I buried the version of me who'd have explained herself. That night, I slept with the windows open. The air smelled like rain, and in my dreams, I wasn't hiding. I was standing in my car, my life, holding keys I never gave away. Ellen was nowhere to be found. No shouting, no pleading, just echoes. The next morning, a small white envelope slid under my door at Willow Creek, handwritten, no return address. I knew it was hers. I stared at it, not because I was unsure, but because I was certain. Marjorie, my new friend from the bridge club, saw me in the lobby, letter in hand, coffee in the other. From her, she asked. I nodded. Want me to read it? No, I said. I don't need anyone else to hear this lie. I didn't open it there. I carried it to my desk, the one my ex-husband used for his crossword puzzles. I waited until the sun hit the window, like it did when we'd sort bills together. Then I opened it. The first word, Clara. Not dear, not I'm sorry. Just my name, like she still had a claim to it. The first paragraph was predictable. Half-hearted regret, how things spiraled, how she never meant to push me out. She called it a misunderstanding, like a Band-Aid on a broken bone. Then the real reason. We're struggling now. Bills are stacking up. Sophie didn't get into that art program after all. There was the ask like always. The apology was bait, and I was supposed to bite because I used to, because I once believed in her without proof. But I wasn't that Clara anymore, the one who softened every doubt to keep peace. I'd made peace with something else. Not every mother is a gift. Some are lessons. The letter ended. Maybe we can talk. I miss you. We all do. I closed it and checked the envelope. Something else was inside. A check from me, from a joint account she'd managed. Uncashed, creased, $2,800. Memo, car maintenance. My name was on it, but I hadn't written it. She'd kept it, forged it, maybe both. It wasn't an apology. It was a hook, dressed in tears and my signature. I folded the check, smaller and smaller, until it vanished in my hand, like every empty promise she'd made. I walked to the shredder. No words, no hesitation, just paper turning to dust. I left the envelope open on my desk, a reminder that not every letter deserves an answer. Margaret stopped by later with blueberry muffins. She saw the envelope and raised an eyebrow. She tried again. I handed her the torn letter. She read it, then gave it back. Still thinks you're a pawn. Not anymore, I said. That night, I didn't journal. I didn't need to. The truth had written itself. I don't care what you meant. What you did was enough. The call came at sunrise. I was up, watching the fountain through the morning fog, a mug of hot water by my side. Margaret's voice was steady. The trust caught another forged check. Same account, same signature. But you didn't sign it. I know, I said. She sent me one last week. Well, she said, the bank knows now too. Ellen had tried again, dipping into my accounts. But the trust's locks held, and the bank had evidence, signatures, withdrawals, emails from her IP, even a voicemail asking about her daughter's balance, like she still owned my name. She wasn't clever. She was desperate. The financial abuse specialist filed a report with the Elder Protection Unit, Margaret said. It's with investigators now. My chest didn't clench, it opened. I hadn't just escaped. I'd set the stage. Hours later, 2 plainclothes officers visited Willow Creek, not for Ellen, but for me. Polite, careful, one took notes while the other asked about my records, my notebook, the withdrawals. I handed over copies, organized, highlighted. I was ready. When they left, the older officer said, "You're not the first, Ms. Bennett, but you're one of the few who caught it in time." I almost corrected him. It wasn't in time, it was just in time. By noon, I had confirmation. Ellen was under investigation for financial misconduct, fraud, forgery. Sophie was named in a transaction too. I didn't celebrate, didn't grieve. I sat in the garden, thinking of every time Ellen said, "You're lucky to have me," while reshaping my life to fit her needs. She treated me like a door she already had the keys to. She never thought I'd change the locks. But I had. Marjorie brought banana bread and chamomile tea that afternoon. The whole community knew by now, not because I shared, but because they saw the storm come and watched me stay calm. "Do you think she'll be arrested?" Marjorie asked softly. "I don't know," I said. "And it's not my call anymore." That was freedom, not revenge, distance. Ellen didn't just lose my money. She lost me, my name, my mind, my life. She gambled on my silence, and when I spoke, she realized she'd never been in control. That night, Margaret and I sat on the patio under a wide, starry sky. She poured us wine and said, "She underestimated you every step." "I underestimated myself too," I replied. She raised her glass. "To recalculating." We clinked, and I said what I hadn't in years but knew was true. I'm safe. Not just from Ellen, but from the need to justify myself to anyone who thought my kindness was weakness. That night, I slept with the window open. The breeze didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a standing ovation.